Call of the Grimoire, Witchcraft on the Streets of London in this explosive origin novella. Dark Creatures Prequel Collection, Book 4. Written by Ella Stone. Narrated by Naomi Rose Mark. Chapter 1. London. 1 year before the events of Dark Creatures. If someone told you they belonged to a secret society that worked to maintain peace between vampires and humans, you would probably think they were insane, and likely make a hasty retreat. If, however, you did choose to indulge them, you might imagine their world was full of clandestine meetings and countless stakeouts. Pun intended. A daily battle between good and evil in the fight to save humanity. Well, just so you know, it's mostly sifting through data and preparing spreadsheets, staring at a screen until your eyes bleed. Not literally, obviously. Is it time for a coffee break? I peer over the top of my computer, to where Oliver is similarly inputting data at the desk opposite. It's 9:15, Ray, he says without looking up. How on earth are we still not done with this yet? Why do we even need to do this? Just think of it this way, once we're done, that's it until next week. Oh, please, somebody shoot me now. With an impressive groan, I flop my head down on the desk as a throat clears behind me. I groan again, although this time I keep it inside. Of course it's Jessup. I swear he only keeps his office door ajar so he can spring out and catch me not working. Slowly I twist my head around to face him. I've had a call about something happening over in Peckham, he says, looking past me to Oliver. Some kids there are convinced they stumbled onto some kind of cult ritual place. Symbols on the floor, candles, dead animals. Isn't that pretty much any bar in Peckham? Kingston asks from across on another computer, snorting in laughter at his own joke. Kingston's a dick. And if you think his jokes are bad, you should see what he's like in bed. Or, rather, don't. It's really not worth the 4 minutes of your life it will use up. Ignoring Kingston in the same way that the rest of us do, Jessup carries on with what he was saying. It's probably nothing, but you know how on edge the Vampire Council gets about anything related to witchcraft. If the VC's concerned, then surely they're the ones who should go and check it out, I offer. True, Jessup agrees, but it's outside their working hours. Yep, this is something we come across repeatedly. Don't expect there being any chance of a vampire helping maintain their own damn safety in the hours of 9 till 5, or 4 till 10 if we're on British summertime. Unsurprisingly, Blackwatch does not pay overtime. Green, Grey, I want you two on this. Green and Grey. Sounds like code names, right? Sadly, not that exciting. Just happens that both Oliver and I have colourful surnames. Andrea Green and Oliver Grey. That's a superhero duo in the making, if ever I heard of one. Not that Green's my real surname. Maybe it is. I really don't know. Let's just say I'm a little hazy when it comes to details about my past. Like, for example, who my actual parents are. There haven't been any witch-related incidents in London for over 60 years, Oliver replies, his mind, as always, on the job. Which is why we'd like to keep it that way. Jessup has switched to his authoritarian tone. I know we don't have a choice in the matter, still. I lean back in my seat to make it look like I have no intention of going anywhere without a shove. But I need to finish next week's donor schedule, I say. Jessup narrows his eyes at me, offering his most distinctly unimpressed glare. You know how it works, just a quick sweep of the place to check for grimoires. Quick in and out, that's it. You should have asked Kingston then if all you want is a quick in and out. He'd be perfect. Juvenile? Yes. Satisfying? Hell yes. I even allow myself a little self-indulgent chuckle as he sticks his middle finger up at me. No disrespect, sir, Oliver pipes up, all serious and professional and putting the rest of us to shame, but no one has found a grimoire in the best part of 40 years. Which is why it should be a quick job. When Polidori calls, because he's heard rumours of one being in town, I need to tell him that we've done our job and everything is clear. This may surprise you, but I don't like to piss off the most powerful vampire in the country. Pussy, I say with a smirk. Jessup does not reciprocate my humour. I want photos and a brief on my desk in the next 2 hours. He drops a piece of paper onto Oliver's desk, before turning around and walking back to his office, shaking his head. Honestly, sometimes I feel like I'm running a kindergarten here, not a professional organisation. The fact that I managed to get at least slightly under his skin leaves me smiling. Jessup likes me. He really does. He just has a hard time admitting it to himself, that's all. I'm head of morale around here. I'm the one who brings in croissants and coffee and makes lewd jokes at Kingston's expense. Honestly, the place would grind to a halt without me. With Jessup's door now closed, I'm still leaning back, when Oliver stands up and lifts his jacket off the chair. Come on, we can get breakfast at the same time. There's a great falafel place near there. He waves a piece of paper that Jessup had just given him, indicating an address. Fine, but you're paying. You know you earn the same as me, right? So, what's your point? Can you get me something too? Kingston calls as we reach the doorway. Probably not, we reply in unison. And that is why Green and Grey work so much better than Green and Kingston would. Given that blue skies in mid-November are pretty rare events, Oliver decides we should walk to Peckham, which is a full 30 minutes from the office. I'll be honest, I'm not the biggest fan of walking. Evolution has pretty much seen to it that I can go 6 out of 7 days without reaching anywhere near my recommended 10,000 steps, and I'd happily take the tube for a journey you'd expect any moderately mobile toddler to make on foot. But it's a work day, and anything that keeps me away from my desk and all the data checking I have to do, I consider a good thing. You know we won't actually find a grimoire, right? I say as we step out onto the street. I do, but Jessup's right. We need to show the VC we're taking it seriously, even if it is nothing. So, vampires and witches. I should probably give you the quick lowdown on why the bloodsuckers get so jerky about the whole thing. And it's probably best if I start at the beginning. First of all, I should tell you about us. We're part of Blackwatch. It's our job to maintain the secret of the vampire's existence. Why, you ask? Why not let them do that for themselves? And I kind of agree with you, but let's be honest. If the general population discovered that vampires, witches and werewolves, yep, werewolves too, actually exist, it's not going to end well for anyone. Vampires kill humans, which is obviously not great news for us. But there are far more of us than them, meaning we'd probably end up in some kind of bloody war in which many on both sides would die and no one would be particularly happy at the end of it. So, we'd like to avoid that happening. We also sort out blood donations for the vampires, both bagged and live, to ensure they don't need to make midnight snacks out of Joe Public. That's where the data entry comes in, just in case you were interested. Anyway, a set of rules were decided in the 1900s and written down in what was called the Blood Pact. Original, right? From that point on, any vampire who killed a human would be punished. Prior to that, they pretty much had free rein on who they killed, which is where the witches came in. For hundreds of years prior to the pact, witches struggled to keep vampire numbers under control. The last big purge they managed was in 1666, the Great Fire of London. Yep, witches were behind that. And they did a good job too in decimating them. But you only need one vampire with a grudge and those numbers can rise again at a catastrophic rate. And, as you can imagine, the vampires that survived had damn big grudges. Through the 18th and early part of the 19th century, their numbers continued to rise, and they made it their mission to take out as many witches as they could. It was all-out war. Finally, the idea of a protocol was formulated. The Blood Pact was meant to protect everyone, all humans, i.e. us normal folk, the witches and the vampires too. But the witches wouldn't agree to it at first. Their very ethos is centred on the value of life. Vampires are anathema to them. But numbers were against them, and eventually they were strong-armed into signing, agreeing to stop hunting the vampires, and the vampires agreed to stop killing humans. In our turn, we promised to keep their existence secret. Are you keeping up here? Humans offered to be the peacekeepers, and Blackwatch was formed. Which leads us to the final part of why the vampires want the grimoires. Surprisingly, it was the witches who weren't so good at sticking to the pact, and in the first few months, they killed over a dozen vampires. The VC wanted the Blood Pact torn up, and the witches responsible killed as punishment. Fair enough, you might well think, but that would just have led us back to another version of bloody war. So, finally, Blackwatch came up with a new agreement. The guilty witches would get to live, but they all had to relinquish their power by handing over their grimoires to the vampires. I can't imagine that went down well. I've never met a witch, but giving up your prized possessions to the ones you hate most, that can't be easy. Now, I bet you're thinking that if Blackwatch are the peacekeepers, surely it would make much more sense for us to deal with the books. But they focus on how to harness life energy. Vampires don't have any, so they can't make any use of them. Humans do, but not much. To the vampires, this was not a risk they were willing to take. So, Unless you're a witch, a grimoire's nothing but a load of dusty old pages, I'm afraid. So that's it. Vampires, witches, grimoires. Did I say my job was dull? My mind is still in the past when Oliver speaks. You're very quiet, Ray, he says. What are you thinking about? Not much, I reply. Just whether we can slip back to your place after this for a quick half-an-hour alone time. He groans and shakes his head, knowing it's only half a joke. Oliver and I have been enjoying each other's company for a couple of months now. In our line of work, you need to have a no-strings-attached way of letting off steam. Actually, I say, changing my mind, I was thinking about grimoires. Why don't the witches just make a load more? In fact, why'd they even need those books? Surely if they can do magic, you can do magic. I guess you have to ask one if you ever meet one. I don't know. All we do know is that they aren't just books. They're a way of channeling energy or some such bollocks. Whatever it is witches do to make their magic. So why not make more? I don't think they can. Not without a decent-sized coven or maybe an incredibly powerful witch. And even then, they'd need the originals to copy. During the war, the vampires made sure they took out all the most powerful witches first. And, as for the original grimoires, the vampires have them. Exactly. After that, we fall into silence. Oliver is thinking about whatever Oliver thinks about. I could hazard a guess, but he'd throttle me if I said it out loud. And I'm still thinking about the whole witch thing. Given that all I've been dealing with since I started this job is vampires, that's where I've focused all my studies for the last 5 years. Clearly, there's a lot more to witches than the brief introduction we're given when we're recruited. Maybe when I get back to the office, I might download a few of the old files to have a read-through. Nothing like Blackwatch archive reading to keep you up all night. We're still walking when I speak again. They should make it into a TV show, you know, the whole vampire against witches thing. I'd watch it, although I quite like a hot male witch. There are always women in these things, don't you find? Oliver stops in his tracks. When he turns and faces me, there's a thick crease between his eyebrows. That's because witches are female. The males are warlocks, or wizards. Ah, I say, things suddenly fitting into place. That makes sense now. Okay, let's keep going. We've got a grimoire to find. Chapter 2. We decide to get a falafel breakfast wrap before going to the place to search for grimoires. Mostly, vampires are pretty well behaved in London, but I've come across 1 or 2 scenes that have put me off my food for a fair chunk of time. The last thing I want to miss out on is a decent za'atar manquiche because some idiot has decided to disembowel a goat on their breakfast table. So I thought we'd go and catch a film tonight, I say, around a mouthful of bread, if you fancy it. Okay, I'll see if Naz is free. And here I was thinking we had something deep and meaningful going on. A pink tinge rises in his cheeks. I'm joking. I'm fully aware our little thing is a distraction before you finally pluck up the courage to actually do something about this crush you've got on her. That's not true, he replies. But he doesn't even come close to reaching my eyes when he speaks. I'd like to say that Oliver and I have some deep-rooted connection, and that this bond between us is all spiritual and meaningful and a whole load of other types of rom-com bullshit. But it's sex. Like I said, it's nothing more than a distraction, really. Oliver spent the last 5 years in love with Nerissa, a girl who he caught trying to break into Blackwatch back in the day. I get it, she's hot in a kind of constantly brooding way. Though, to be honest, she's even more screwed up than I am. Although she's got her reasons, which I guess is why she won't let Oliver get close, even though they're patently perfect for one another. If either of them would show the slightest hint that they were going to make a move, I would be out of the way just like that, on the sidelines, cheering them on. But that's not going to happen, for a while at least. They're just too damn blind. And, as I said, we need a way to let off steam. In our job, there's no point getting close to someone on the outside because you can never tell them the truth about what you do. Sometimes that's a tough pill to swallow. Screwing colleagues occasionally is hardly the worst way to deal with the stress. You done? He asks, scrunching up his wrapper into a ball and chucking it into a bin. I've still got a third of mine to go, so I make him wait. I'm not one of those women who will eat only half a meal when they've paid for the whole damn thing. Besides, he was right. It is good. When I'm finally finished, I wipe my hands on my jeans and give him a look that says I'm ready to go. Jessup's note says it's a flat down in the basement, he says, walking over to a 4-story building, where the upper floors are boarded over and a mass of pigeons are roosting on the roof. A basement in an abandoned building. Where else would it be? I say, following after him. On first inspection, it's difficult to see anything until I whip off a few of the blankets that are acting as blinds and let some light in. Given that it's a basement, they're only half windows, high up, but it's all we need. I've done this job enough to know that sometimes you don't want to be able to see all that clearly. The place certainly has a witchy vibe, or at least a vibe that's trying to be witchy. To be honest, it looks like someone has Googled "what do I need to be a witch" and bought everything from the first website they've come to. And geez, the smell. Like raw meat added to a compost heap. That's when I noticed a dead rat. Now that I could deal with. And no offence to animal lovers, but I'd rather find a dead one than a live one. Looks like it's given up the ghost from old age or boredom, I comment. Nothing ritualistic here. Yes, I think the kids were just letting their imaginations get the better of them, Oliver replies. There's no furniture in the place except one low-to-the-ground coffee table that's covered in everything from pestle and mortar to a jar of what looks to be desiccated chicken feet, and a bookcase. 6-foot-high cast-iron candlestick holders stand in each corner of the room, and the walls and floor are covered in symbols, created with a variety of different materials, salt, ink, and one pentacle has been scratched into the plaster of the wall so deep you can see the brickwork underneath. So many pentacles. I know it's a nice shape and everything, but I feel like they could have tested a few other ideas out, you know? The only wall that escapes the mess is the back one with the bookcase against it, and even that doesn't look in too great a shape. Books with ripped spines, torn out pages, that kind of thing. I'm about to head over and take a closer look, but I notice Oliver's attention is on a pentacle drawn on the floor. It's sizable, about 6 feet across, and rusty brown in colour. Has it dried that colour from red, I wonder, when it was perhaps wet? Is that... Oliver bends down to sniff, having had the same idea. That's not blood, I tell him, having thought about it. Blood's too low in viscosity to work that way. It's just been made to look like blood. Viscosity, eh? Big word. Although I think you're right for once. The look I shoot him is scathing, but short-lived. I've got other things to deal with. Namely, that bookcase. The shelves, while in complete disarray, hold a lot of mystical titles. The Power of Gemstone, Learning in the Ley Lines, Energy of the Ether, and a load of other bullshit. But all these books are new. I may not have seen a Grimoire before, but I'm willing to bet they aren't published by Random House or HarperCollins, meaning everything there is a bust. You found anything? I ask. No, just a few cider cans and a couple of syringes. Class place this, so no real witchy stuff. Just a bunch of kids playing at it, most likely. It was pretty much the same conclusion I'd come to, which was both disappointing. Scheduling blood donors is tedious at best, and I wouldn't have minded a little break away from vamps for a while. And a relief. I could only imagine the reams of paperwork Jessup would have us write up and file if we had found one. Great, so how about we go to that cheesecake place I spotted on the way over? We can sit there and write up the report. You realise we just had breakfast. You realise you're incredibly judgmental. Knowing full well that I'll win the cheesecake battle, and deciding that I'll probably pick up a few slices for Jessup and the others, we get ready to leave. Oliver takes a few photos for the report, and I've just replaced the blankets I'd torn down from the windows. When I stop, "You feel that?" I ask, turning to Oliver, although I needn't have. I can see he's noticed it too. Air movement as if there's an opening somewhere, like a fireplace. Only there's not one. Not one that we can see. Our eyes land on the exact same spot. The bookcase. Just step back a bit, he says, grabbing hold of one side of it. I wait for a moment, just enough time for him to realise that while he could lift it on his own, he probably shouldn't, given that it would likely result in all the books sliding off, making it impossible for him to move without falling on his arse. Still, like I said, I give him a minute. Sometimes men like him need a little bit of time to understand that what they can and what they should do aren't always the same thing. By the time he looks to me for help, I'm already standing next to him, ready to lend a hand. We should move it over there, I say, in front of the window. Agreed. Both grunting in a rather unattractive way, we lug the bookshelf 5 feet to the side and drop it back down on the floor. Given that I just managed to put the room back into almost complete darkness by covering the windows again, I pull out my phone and switch on the torch. And what do you know? I say. The fireplace itself has been bricked up, but it's clearly a new job. The bricks are darker, the mortar fresher. Also, as clear as day, there's a footprint in the dust. Someone's been here recently, I say. Let's open this up, he replies. What do you reckon is the best way? I flash my light around the room, my eyes falling on the cast iron candlesticks. Grab one of those, I suggest. Hit it about halfway up, he says, readying himself with the metalwork. And not too hard. We want to try and maintain its structural integrity so it doesn't all come down on us. As it turns out, whacking a wall with a massive, heavy object can be wonderfully therapeutic, even when it's in a disgusting cesspit of a place. Honestly, could be turned into one of those new workout fads, like the one where people mess around with big heavy ropes. I think there's a market for it somewhere. Brick bashing. We take turns knocking 7 bells out of the brickwork. Small flurries of dust bloom up into the air with every hit. It isn't exactly pleasant. I'm definitely going to have to wash my hair again tonight. But it only takes a few good strikes before the mortar starts loosening. We should be able to pull that middle brick out now, I say, dropping my candlestick holders to the ground. Takes a bit of effort, but bit by bit, we manage to dig out enough of a hole to fit a hand through. See if you can feel anything, Oliver says, dumping the job on me. You know I'd do it, but you've got slimmer arms. Yeah, right. I move into position. What do you reckon the chances are that this whole wall could collapse on me? I ask, as I reach in, elbow deep. I don't know, but they increase the longer you're in there. What can you feel? Trying to ignore the fact that anything could be lurking there, I push my arm in further and move it about as much as I can. The air that we'd felt is cold on my skin as I brush against cobwebs which knot around my fingers. Anything? He asks. I don't know, maybe if you give me a minute to concentrate, I'd be able to tell. My arm is pushed in as far as I can get it, and the rough edges of the bricks are starting to cut into my biceps. Not to mention the fact that the cobwebs are so thick that my fingers are now practically bound up. Still, the whole space feels empty. Confident that I'm wasting my time, I angle my shoulder to get my arm back out. There's nothing in here. Wait. I'm drawing my fingers away when my skin touches it. It's warmer than anything else. Warmer than the cobwebs in the air. Subtle. And soft. There's something here. Something. Wedging myself in further, I try to get a grip of it, but I can't quite reach far enough, and if I try and stretch any more, I'm going to dislocate something. Oh, it's no good, I say, pulling my hand out and peeling the cobwebs off my fingers. We need to make the hole bigger. Sure thing. Stepping back, he grabs both our candlestick holders together. I'd like to point out to you at this point that whatever preconceived ideas you've made about me, I am not a shallow person. I have a broad spectrum of interests, ranging from astrophysics, not astrology, to ancient civilization and architecture. I'm not attracted to a person purely by such superficial things as their looks or physique. I like to form deep, mental connections, tangible bonds built on a foundation of trust and mutual respect. That said, Oliver looks fit as hell as he rolls up his sleeves and takes some metal to the brickwork. I work out with this guy. I spot for him at the gym, and, to be fair, I could have taken down that wall myself if I'd wanted to. But occasionally it's just so much more enjoyable to let someone else do the grunt work, while you stand back and enjoy the view. And it's a good view, whatever angle you look at it from. The thwack reverberates around the room. What happened to structural integrity? I ask, as clouds of dust fly up into the air, stinging my eyes and catching in my throat. Yeah, screw that. One more thwack, then another. You should step back now, he says, wiping the dust from his face. A final wallop, and the pair of us jump back, just in time, as the wall comes crashing down around us. Chapter 3. If you've ever wondered why demolition guys wear goggles, don't. Honestly, for a second there, it was like the air turned solid around us. When the dust finally settles, in a literal, not figurative sense, I step back to the fireplace and pull out the object inside. So, this would be a grimoire, I say. Many things in my job don't match up with conventional perception of the supernatural. Werewolves don't turn on a full moon, and vampires sure as hell don't sparkle. Not that that's a convention, but you know what I'm talking about. But this grimoire, well, it looks exactly like you'd expect a grimoire to look like. Think overly thick book, papyrus-type pages, lots of illustrations and words in a language that's a long, long way from English. That's not Latin, is it? I ask, running my fingers over the first page. There's a drawing at the bottom, although it's not the stereotypical pentacle. If anything, it looks more like something from a physics textbook. A photon trail in a bubble chamber, maybe. What? I did say I was into astrophysics. Looks more like Sanskrit, Oliver says, as he leans over my shoulder. No, scrap that. It's Lithuanian. Lithuanian? How do you know that? I like languages, he says, as if it's obvious. But it makes sense. It's a far older language than Latin, and witches predate the Romans by a good few millennia. We need to get it straight back to Jessup. Still, I can't draw my eyes off it. This is going to sound crazy, but I swear, holding it in my hands, I can feel a connection to the earth somehow. Of course, they're just bits of paper, but it's as if I can feel so much more than that. Like the flowers that form the ink and the wood, the pages, still have energy coursing through them. Do you have a bag or something we can put it in? I ask Oliver. For some reason, carrying this out in the open doesn't feel quite right. No, but we might be able to find something here, he says, and starts to search around. It's fine, I say. We'll just use my top. It's a sensible offer, but also a nice little play. Stripping out my black top and down to just the sports bra I have on underneath, I look pretty damn fabulous. Really? He asks, making one of his we should look uber professional at all times faces. Which of course is bullshit, because why should what I wear have any impact at all on how I do my job? It doesn't. And anyone who thinks someone who has tattoos or doesn't wear a tie can't do their job either needs to take a serious look at themselves. Besides, it's summer outside, the first hint of better weather, and 95% of British males strip off their t-shirts and proudly display their beer bellies to the world. And no one tells them they look indecent. If a bit of a bra strap is your greatest concern in life, then you need to get over yourself. With the grimoire safely wrapped up, we head back to the door. I guess there's no point now trying to hide the fact that someone's been here, is there? I say, looking around at the debris. Better safe than sorry, Oliver replies, and pulls a lighter out of his pocket. Quick side note here. If you try to start a fire by throwing a cheap disposable lighter, the flame will go out before it hits the ground. You take your finger off the gas, see? Same with a match. Not the gas issue, but the air movement. 99.9% of the time, these things won't work. They're just TV tropes. But Oliver has an ancient Zippo that his grandfather gave him, so no problem there. But rather than leaving any evidence around, not to mention losing a family heirloom, he picks up one of the rags that's lying around, holds it against the flame, and waits until the thing's fully alight before chucking it on the ground. On the way back up the stairs, as I hold our find to my chest, he takes out his phone and dials. "Fire brigade, please," he says. Back at Blackwatch HQ, the whole crew has appeared, trying to get a glimpse of the grimoire. Sheesh. Kingston reaches out his hand to touch it, and I slap it away. Hey, why'd you do that? It's not some plaything. We don't touch it unless Jessup says we can. You're touching it. I brought it here, douchebag. What are you, 5? I get douchebag is probably not the most professional language to use in an office situation, but it seems appropriate right now. So I guess we need to call in the vamps, get them to come and collect it. Not quite yet. All eyes turn to Jessup. There are times when I can have my fun and games with the big boss. Wind him up a bit, take the piss, that kind of thing. And there are times when I can't. I can tell straight away that this is one of the latter. He's abandoned his shirt and tie, but that still means he's a long way from relaxed. There's a muscle twitching along the line of his locked jaw, and I would bet my life on the fact that he's grinding his teeth, even without any supernatural vamp-hearing talent. Green. Grey. In my office, please. Given that Jessup is the director of Black Watch, you'd think he'd have an impressive office, big long windows, riverfront view, like the guys at MI5. No such luck. The building we're in is nice enough, but space in central London is at a premium, and with a dozen of us working here, it means that everyone is a little cramped. Even the boss. Close the door after you, he says to me, going straight to the blinds to pull them down. So, an actual grimoire. It was in a bricked-up fireplace, you say? With a bookcase in front of it, I add, just to point out how truly awesome we were finding it. He nods, his eyes still fixed on the book. So who does this go to now? Oliver asks. Straight to Polidori, I take it. I shudder. Jessup notices and shoots me a look, although what he's trying to say I can't read. Polidori is the head of the Vampire Council. Despite its name, this is not meant to be a scary thing. The Council are the ones responsible for vampires honouring the Blood Pact, and Polidori was the one who helped it see the light of day. Again, no pun intended. Without him, there would likely be a lot more of them roaming the streets, and a lot fewer humans. Still, he's old, the big dog of the vampire world, pretty much the oldest one there is. But just because he's deemed trustworthy doesn't mean he's not terrifying at the same time. We'll get there, but first we need to work fast. Whatever I'm expecting, it's not what happens next. I'm still wondering what could be such a big deal that Jessup needed to close the blinds. We do work for a secret society after all. I mean, how much more secret do we need to get? He goes over to a painting on the wall, puts the flat of his hand on it and pushes. It moves inwards and, just like that, the whole wall moves backwards, revealing a secret fucking staircase. Are you kidding me? This is honestly the coolest thing I have ever seen, although judging from Jessup's glower, I'm a little over-enthusiastic in my reaction. I lower my voice and go again. Did you know about this? I ask Oliver. Not a clue, he replies. Hurry up, Jessup says, and consider yourself promoted to the next pay grade. Seriously, that puts me 2 above Kingston. I hiss at Oliver, while offering him a fist bump that he completely ignores. Remembering that I ought to be super sensible now that I am so senior, I follow Jessup through the office wall and down the staircase, to a basement below. And when I finally reach the bottom, my response says it all. This is like the fucking Batcave. But there are no dusty cobwebs or crumbling walls here. This is all sleek metal and glass, and then more metal. It's an armoury, Oliver says, which is, admittedly, once again, the more professional response. I can't begin to explain the size of the place. It's not just a traditional basement, occupying the same footprint as the building above. It stretches out in every direction beyond that. A series of strip lights flicker on and on into the distance, and I'm not joking when I say I would quite possibly need a telescope to see to the end of it. Still holding the grimoire, Jessup moves past glass cabinets full of crossbows and guns, and over to a computer. I use the term computer loosely here. It is once again Batcave style, with 6 different screens, and a keyboard that's as long as a grand piano's. How? Oliver asks, as Jessup pulls out a seat and sits down. I thought the vampires expect us to hand over everything that could harm them. A common misconception that Polidori allows the others to think is true. The fact is that when the Blood Pact was agreed, he deemed it only fair that humans were able to hold on to a couple of artifacts to ensure we feel safe. A couple of artifacts, I say. The founders of Blackwatch took a few liberties when interpreting the sentiment. Jessup replies. Honestly, I can't imagine how much stuff must be down here. It makes the Natural History Museum look like a school project. But the grimoires? Oliver asks. I thought the vampires were very specific about them. Yes, they are, which is why we need to move fast. He lifts up a panel at the side of the keyboard. It's a straightforward scanner. You need to get as many pages copied as you possibly can. What are you going to do? I'm going to buy us time. The fire you started was a good idea. He looks at me at this point like I'm bound to be the pyromaniac in the partnership. I need to smooth things over with the police department, check you weren't caught on surveillance, and put a few stoppers in the works to make sure it's all clean our end. The vampires would expect those to be my first priorities. Then I'll call them. I guess that gives you about half an hour before I have to get one of them to come in and collect it. Half an hour, I say. This thing is massive. It's like a volume of the unedited Encyclopedia Britannica. And I'm betting that working too fast with paper like this could end up in a lot of damage being caused. Jessup reads my mind. You're also going to have to wipe down every page as you go, he says. The vampires will expect to smell you on the book, after all, you carried it. But if they notice you're sent too strongly on the inside, they may get suspicious. I'm not expecting a miracle, just get what you can. Every page is a bonus. And with that, he leaves me and Oliver to get started. All right, I guess you can be the one to open it up, I say. Why me? Oliver says hesitantly. Well, if we don't manage to wipe it down properly and there's still scent on it, I'd rather the angry vamps came after you. Ever the caring partner, he replies. I'll make it up to you tonight, I say with a wink. It's slow work, seriously slow. Oliver is as delicate with the pages as he can be, flattening them down carefully on the glass, while I check that everything is visible on the computer screen before clicking scan on the keyboard. After that, he wipes them down before turning to the next page. Each page is different. The language looks the same, but the handwriting changes. Some are all words, some all pictures. Most are a mixture of both. The inks often change colour, and the edges of many pages are very well thumbed. The book is a work of art in itself. We're probably about 10% of the way through when Jessup appears on the stairs behind us. That's nearly it. Someone's on their way. You've got about 10 minutes. I'll let you know when I buzz them in. Aware that we can only manage 1 or 2 more pairs of pages, I study the ones magnified on the screen in front of me. It's a beautiful language, I say, gazing at the loops and walls. Seems crazy that someone could turn these words into actual magic. I know. Must be incredible, to have that power, that strength. I stare at the screen. I don't know why, but I want to remember it. It's so perfect. It doesn't seem right that something so exquisite can only exist in the hands of vampires or in the static charge of a computer's memory. It looks like it wants to breathe, to be connected to life. Grey, green. Shit! I jump, as the speaker buzzes into life on the desk beside me. They're here. You need to bring it back up now. What? How the hell did they get here so fast? Vamp speed, remember? Oliver replies. I thought we'd have a little longer, given that it's daytime. Jessup agrees over the speaker. Nodding wordlessly, I take a last look at the screen. One drawing looks like shards of shattered sunlight, breaking onto the page and drifting through the words. Okay, that's it, Oliver says, lifting up the tome, quickly wiping the pages down and folding it closed. Time to hand it over. Chapter 4. The wall behind the painting is just clicked back into place when a knock rattles on the glass door. Jessup steps forward and opens it. If the office was small with the 3 of us, with 4 it's like playing a game of sardines. As the vampire steps into the room, I shift myself back next to Oliver, and only partly to make extra space for him. I'm not ashamed to admit it. Vampires scare the crap out of me. He's completely covered up, coat, hat and gloves. The whole shebang, despite it being the middle of summer. Only his face is visible, and it's a beautiful one. From what I can see, he's about the same size as Oliver, but he's the antithesis of him. While my partner has ashy blonde hair, this guy's is jet black. Brown eyes versus crazily piercing blue. Had I seen him in a bar, I would have been straight over offering him a bed for the night, whether he needed one or not. No chance of that here, though. Not knowing what he is. Callan? Jessup extends a hand, which the vampire takes and shakes firmly, before shifting his attention across to Oliver and me. You're the 2 who found this? It isn't a question. We are, I say. Jessup takes the book from Oliver and hands it to him. He takes it carefully, turns it over in his hands, and then opens it. I would almost say he looks impressed, but that's a hard call where a vampire is concerned. This particular grimoire has been hidden from us for centuries. It could not have been an easy find. Was that a compliment? I honestly couldn't tell. Thank you for the clear-up work, too, he says to Jessup. Jessup nods. This find, does it indicate that there are witches practicing currently? Callan shakes his head. Very unlikely. The magic in this grimoire is highly advanced. Only a witch with substantial power would be able to harness anything from it at all. And you already have all the ones with rudimentary magic, I say, momentarily forgetting that the last thing I want is to draw attention to myself. We do, he says. And now, if you will excuse me, I must put this where it belongs, in safekeeping with the others. And, in an instant, he and the grimoire are gone, the door swinging on its hinges in his wake. To our first grimoire! Kingston raises his shot glass. The rest of us quickly follow suit, and down our drinks in one go. Even Jessup has broken his age-old rule of never socializing, to join us for a drink. This is a one-off, he says. You guys know that. Seriously, though, I never thought I'd see one in my lifetime. I'll drink to that. Kingston grabs another load of shots from the tray in front of him and hands them out. To once in a lifetime. More clinking and cheering follow. The Poison Ivy has been the hangout for the Blackwatch crew since its inception. Dusty and dated, it's the type of place where no one asks too many questions. I don't have any proof, but it wouldn't surprise me if Jessup had this place on the books, just to give us somewhere to go and talk shop. Did you have a chance to look at what was inside? Kingston shouts across the table. Maybe. So? So what? Can you remember anything? You're the one always talking about your amazing memory. Let's see what you've got. Shaking my head, I look over to Oliver, who raises an eyebrow questioningly. Do you remember anything? He asks, just out of curiosity. It's true, I do have an awesome memory. It's one of the reasons Jessup recruited me, and I'll forever be grateful that he did. After an upbringing like mine, dumped as a kid, 16 foster homes in 14 years, you can't imagine what Blackwatch has done for me. They're like the family I never had. When Jessup found me, I was cage fighting to earn money. He pulled me out of a pit, and now I would die for these guys. Even the dickish ones like Kingston. But that doesn't mean I'd ever let them know that. Now everyone's eyes are on me, including Jessup's, and they all clearly want me to say something. I can't pronounce anything, I just remember a few letters, that's all. Such as? I can see there are two ways out of this. I can shake my head, tell everyone to carry on drinking, and they'll call me a load of names, get on enjoying the rest of the night and continue to take the piss out of me for a couple of days. Or I can give it a go. Okay, here's one thing that was on there. I grab a paper coaster and take a pen from Jessup's top pocket and scribble down one of the phrases that I saw inked inside the grimoire. My memory works better when I can visualise things like that, and this one sticks out due to how brief it was. For all I know, it could say, please turn over. Once it's done, I have a go at saying it. Pseudoziti stiglas, I offer. There's a moment's silence, and in the quiet, you can hear the fridge whirring behind the bar. Then everyone bursts out laughing. Well, at least we don't have to worry about having a witch in the organisation. Jessup joins in, chuckling. That would completely screw us with the vampires. You'll start earning your money the hard way, like the rest of us, Kingston jibes. Even Oliver chimes in. To be honest, I think it was your pronunciation. Oh, sorry, mister, I speak 6 languages. I fling back at him. How should I have pronounced it then? He reaches over and grabs the coaster. Well, assuming this is Lithuanian you were just butchering, which I'm pretty sure it is, I think what you were trying to say is Pseudogite stikalas. Sounds like a pretty rubbish spell to me, Kingston says, and the rest of them go back to drinking. But the words are still floating around my head, like they want me to say them again. Say them properly. Pseudogite stikalas. I whisper the words more to myself than anyone else. But it doesn't matter. The moment they escape my lips, I can feel an energy rising up from the ground itself. And that's when it happens. That's when every single piece of glass in the entire bar shatters. Chapter 5. Ray! Ray! A shower of glass rains down. Being that we're in a bar, there's a lot of it. Bottles, glasses, mirrors, light bulbs, decorative hangings, even the fridge door. Every single piece explodes all around us. Through the haze, I see everyone, arms over their heads, trying to protect themselves. Everyone except Oliver, who's rushing round through the deluge to get to me. He's hurt and blood is trickling down his face. Ray, are you okay? You all right? What am I? I try to figure it out. I'm shaking, trembling from head to toe, and it's not from the hundreds of shards that must be digging into me. It's something else, like there's so much energy my body can't hold on to it. It's okay, he says, picking glass from my hair as the others start to right themselves. You're okay. When I look past him, the rest of Blackwatch are on their feet, and suddenly, every single one of them is looking at me, including Jessup. This time it's not a look of amusement in their eyes. It's pure, outright fear. Get out, Jessup orders. When no one moves, he yells, out! Get out! Everyone out of here! Now! Somehow I know that doesn't apply to me. The landlady is the first one out the door, the cigarette in her hand still burning. The rest of the organisation follows behind. Only Oliver stays. Oliver and Jessup. And at this moment their eyes are on each other, and not me. Oliver is the first to speak. She didn't know. We can cover this up. Say it's a gas leak. Covering it up is the least of our worries. She can't stay. If we let her and the vampires found out the... How? How would they find out? None of us would tell. Not if our lives depended on it. Wouldn't happen. That's when I realised what they're talking about. They're talking about me. About what they're going to do with me. I didn't know, I say, hearing a tremor in my voice. I just thought... I didn't know. We know you didn't, Oliver says quietly. But still neither of them can manage to look me in the eye. You want me to go? I ask. You're kicking me out? She can't stay with us. It's not worth the risk. When Jessup speaks, I can hear the pain in his voice. You have to leave us, Andrea. You have to go far, far away from here. Believe me, if any of my predecessors had been here, it would be a worse fate for you than that. Please. You must do this. You have to go. You'll force my hand otherwise. Oliver steps in front of me. Only now do I see the extent of damage the flying glass caused. There are patches of blood on his chest. More on his arms. Jessup has similar injuries, but when I look down at myself, there's not one drop of blood. Not even on my bare arms. If she goes, I go too, he says. That's when my brain finally clicks back in. No, I say, pushing him to the side. Don't do that, it's okay. We can sort this, right, Jessup? You know me. You know I'd never do anything to put Blackwatch at risk. Not on my life. You know that. I do. Jessup nods sadly. Which is why I know you'll do this. He reaches out his hand, palm upwards. I need your pass card. I feel heat burning my eyes. Stray tears free themselves and trickle down my cheeks. You're my family. You're the only family I've ever had. My voice is barely a whisper. Still, Jessup can't meet my gaze. I wish there was another way, he says. You heard Callan. That grimoire was for advanced witchcraft. The fact that you could do that. He pauses. I'm sorry. No, Jessup, no, please. My hands are clenched in front of me. The others will forget. We can all just forget. Please, Jessup. He bows his head for a moment, and then looks back up. Whether you knew it or not, you have put us all at risk. If you come back to Blackwatch, you will leave me no choice. I don't recall the walk back to my flat. Oliver was by my side, I know that much, guiding me. When we reach the building, he takes my key from my fumbling fingers and slips it into the lock. I'll stay with you, he offers. I shake my head. I don't need you to do that. Still, I don't object as he follows me up the stairs and unlocks the door to my flat. Give him time, he says, moving to the freezer and pulling out the bottle of vodka he knows will be there. It was a shock, that's all. He just needs to think of a way to sort this out. No. The word comes out so quietly I can barely hear it myself. What was that? I said no. He won't just get over this. He was right. Glass in hand, he moves across to the sofa and offers me the drink. You've got to believe me, you're the best of us. I know that, and Jessup knows that. He's not just going to let you go. I'm a liability. That's the fact of the matter. The vampires fear witches more than anything else. If there was even a hint that Blackwatch had one in their midst, there'd be outright war. All the peace they've worked for, we've worked for. Jessup should have me killed. It's the only way. Oliver kneels on the ground, resting his hands on my knees. Andrea Green, I don't know what you're thinking, but stop it. There's a way around this, a way out. I know it doesn't seem like it now, but there is. I promise you. A small chuckle escapes my lips. Do you think they knew, my parents? Do you think they knew what I was? It's hereditary, isn't it? They must have known. Maybe. Maybe not. You didn't know. I guess if they'd not been brought up to know, never came across a grimoire and tried anything, they wouldn't have. I guess. But it doesn't matter. Nothing does. Everything about my life is a lie. Blackwatch, and the only family I've ever known, is closed to me now. Even if Oliver can't see it, I can. Oliver, I can't go back. Jessup's right. I've got to disappear, and then I have to do it on my own. Do what? He asks, his hands resting on mine. Although I can't feel them. Can't feel anything anymore. I lift my eyes to meet his gaze. Survive. This has been Call of the Grimoire, Witchcraft on the Streets of London in its explosive origin novella, Dark Creatures Prequel Collection, Book 4. Written by Ella Stone. Narrated by Naomi Rose Mock. Copyright 2021 by Ella Stone. Production copyright by Ella Stone.